and get into the second segment on Thursday without our guy Tom Murphy as he joins us. Now, Tom, if you look at this Texas A&M defense, they've given out a good chunk of rushing yards to this point outside the top 80, but only 17 points in 3 games, it's either 0 or 1 passing touchdowns. What are your thoughts on kind of this Texas A&M defense that Arkansas is going up against at 2:30 on Saturday?
Well, they're very good. There's a bunch of first-round draft picks on that front, DeMarvin Leal and some of the other guys, Jaden Peavy. These are huge guys with veteran experience, and they can stuff your run. But let's be honest about this, however. Texas A&M hasn't faced an offense that, has the diversity and the strength that Arkansas has yet. It doesn't change the fact that they're a very good defense, but their numbers are built up against Colorado, which is struggling to score the ball, and New Mexico, which doesn't have. I don't think New Mexico has the skill, talent, or the broad amount of athletes that Arkansas will present. So it's still going to be difficult to move the ball on them. It's a veteran secondary as well, so Arkansas is going to have to execute better. Think over the first 3 games. The number of plays that, for instance, the pass to Tyson Morris that opened the game for Arkansas, that needs to be delivered in stride. I mean, he fell down catching the ball, and he was wide open. Mm-hmm. That could have been 6. And there's been some other throws. So KJ is going to have to, be a little bit more on target, and, you're going to have to hold your blocks a little bit longer. It's going to be harder to move those guys in the front.
Tom,
so it's going to be a tough game.
Tom, I know that your colleague Bob Holt was asking Coach Pittman last week if Jimbo Fisher tried to hire him, and he didn't really want to answer the question, but he asked the same thing to Jimbo yesterday, and Coach said, "Yeah, I tried to hire him. He's a great person. Loves being around Sam." And so, what does that tell you that Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, and so many other great college football coaches have either tried to hire Sam Pittman or at least regard him in such high value as a football coach?
Well, but that he's well liked, and the thing is, if you talk to his players, and at Arkansas, his players being Dan Skipper, Travis Swanson, and so on, highly recommended him for the head coaching job because they knew how he related to players and people and how he was a team builder. Then that's why these coaches are like, we're going to have unity on our offensive line. We're going to have a premier O-line recruiter, a guy who, when he communicates with people, they're attracted to him because of how he talks to people. And in his initial comments coming to Arkansas as the head coach, it was communication is going to be key for me. We're not going to have agendas on the roster and people holding grudges against people. We're going to get it out in the air, and we're going to talk about things. So that's why Sam Pittman, and it's so cool that it's happened late in his career. He's talking about potentially retiring when he's at Georgia, and now he's a head coach and a hot commodity, and he's got a building program.
Yeah, and a building retirement fund with this last job in his career, too, so it's a pretty good deal. Hey, Tom, do you get a sense of, not with the team, but with the fan base and the conversations and just kind of putting your finger on the pulse, I get a sense of overconfidence this week, like we don't really grasp and understand you're playing an A&M team that's in the top 10 for a reason. You mentioned the first-round draft picks along that line. Do you think there's a bit of an overconfidence problem right now with the fan base that we're setting ourselves up perhaps for not really understanding the quality of the opponent?
Well, I think the fan base is probably confident, but they know what the score is, man. It's 9 wins in a row for Texas A&M, many of them in excruciating fashion. So I don't think any fan is delusional enough to think that they're going to walk down there and just kick Texas A&M's butt. However, the way Arkansas handled Texas is something that you can lean on a little bit and say we're going to be in this game, and this is going to be a tough fight for Texas A&M. Arkansas has got to do a few things. They've got to make sure Isaiah Spiller they don't get Isaiah Spiller in the run game really established. They want to put the game on Zach Calzada. He is more prone to make mistakes. So, there's a lot of things that have to be done. Texas A&M is super sound in special teams, and Arkansas is playing better in the kicking game, but they've got to match A&M in this game. So a lot of different components for the game have to come together. But I think it all starts with one thing: the players believing that they can go down and beat Texas A&M. And when you start from that point and you go out and execute what you want to do, it gives you a good chance to win.
I agree. I just asked that question because I haven't talked to one person this week that's in the fan base or had one call that I remember on this show from an Arkansas fan that thinks A&M's going to win the game.
What's fan short for? What's fan short for again, Tommy?
I know, but even in other weeks, you kind of get the sense of that. And I think this is an important game because you look at the 3-game stretch, Tom. You got A&M, you got Georgia, which is an even more difficult game on the road against a even better defense, and then Ole Miss's offense right now. Now they haven't been fully tested, but it's just scary to watch their complete team, but particularly the offense. Tom, winning this game, for getting over that 9-game losing streak between the two programs, all those things are important, but the last thing you want is the potential of a 3-game losing streak to halt the momentum you've built. The best way to ensure that doesn't happen, obviously, is to beat A&M, but you're going right into the teeth of A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss here, and so this game is paramount to me just from that perspective.
Yeah, agreed, and I think we all also kind of agreed that if Arkansas could beat Texas, which they did, it gave them a little bit of a leg up in terms of, getting the bowl eligibility and that kind of thing. It's almost like, you're about to go out onto the high seas. You've kind of been in the safe harbor a little bit. You went out there and ventured into one big battle against Texas. You won it. Now you're going out on the choppy seas, and when the ship returns to port, man, who knows what the outcome is going to be. But with the exception of the UAPB game, these are all going to be tough.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Tom, you brought it up a little bit earlier with Texas A&M not playing as good of teams as and I say it's good of teams. It's really Texas is the only difference between the two. A&M hasn't really played anyone. So my question is for Jimbo Fisher and his squad heading into a hostile environment, both crowds are going to be loud. It's going to be tenacious. Is that going to hurt them that Arkansas, I believe, is going to punch them in the mouth early and they're going to have to respond?
Well, yeah, they haven't faced a ton of adversity. They had to go down and score late against Colorado. And, I think Arkansas was playing it was during the post game, and I was still working when that game was resolved. And it was just befuddling that they couldn't score on Colorado. So there was some adversity there, and questions about can Calzada lead this offense. He performed better last week, but I think that's why everything you've heard out of Jimbo Fisher's mouth since the end of the New Mexico game has been, we're not executing at a high enough level. We're not being a physical enough team, because he understands it all changes on Saturday. And I think his players grasp that as well. They know they're 3-0. They know that they survived a tough one, but they really haven't faced a premier opponent with talent across the board like Arkansas.
Tom, these jokes always get made, and you've been around this program since 2007. And I don't know how many Alabama fans would make Texas A&M jokes, considering they didn't play each other so often. But do you have a favorite Aggie joke that you've heard from fans or you've heard here and there over the years since Texas A&M suited up against Arkansas?
I can watch a stand-up routine. For instance, I had Dennis Miller on the other day, and I like Jim Gaskin. I can watch their stand-up routine, and 10 minutes later, somebody say, hey, what were the highlights of that? And I might remember one joke. I am the worst at remembering jokes. But whenever things are screwing up, there's a couple of people in the press box who'll go like, looks like the Aggies are in charge. Not that that's a joke, but that's kind of, I'm sorry, that's all I got.
No, that's pretty. I'd say that's pretty good. The fact that the own Arkansas press members are making those jokes, Tommy. I'd say that's I've not heard anyone say that, but I'll be keeping my ears peeled out for it next time.
There's just not a traditional week for jokes about the fan base, but there's always Aggie joke week. So that's one of the highlights of the season, right? I know it is for your colleague Clay Henry, so who I think keeps a file on these things. So
yeah, Clay had some good ones last time we were talking about this. He loves making these jokes.
Well, I'm going to have to talk to him when we get down to Arlington and hear some of these.
So, all right, looking forward to it. Hey, last one before we go. One of the things I think that has been noticed, Ty and I have been talking about it, I think a lot of people have been talking about it, is the open wide receivers we've seen even last week, some with Georgia Southern, certainly with Texas. Probably wasn't as prominent against Rice or didn't stand out, but certainly the last two games, we've seen some of those receivers get open. How concerning is that for you going into this game? Because you got to believe that A&M and Jimbo Fisher are going to probably test that and test it early in this game against Arkansas.
You know, I had been thinking the last few days that when I talked to you guys today, that was one point I wanted to bring up, was that good teams kind of make their own breaks. And I think that's a product of Arkansas playing, doing things right, and probably pressure on the quarterback here and there. Like the Hudson Card ones, he was on the move. And Greg McElroy was pointing it out on the air that there's a natural spin when you're on the move, and it kind of spins away. And that's why he was a little off on the deep throws in that game. And so, yes, guys have been running free. And honestly, the Georgia Southern, there was a wheel route. It seemed like there was about 3 other plays that if the pass is on target or it's caught, it's a huge play touchdown. So, yes, it is concerning. And Texas A&M has a caliber of athlete that it's more likely to be a completed pass. And so, yes, Arkansas's numbers are good, but there's been dozens and dozens of yards left on the field by opponents on open receivers.
Mm-hmm. We'll see if that becomes an issue on Saturday. Tom, enjoy your trip to Arlington, and we'll recap all of it with you on Monday here on the Morning Rush.
Awesome. Everybody have a great weekend.
All right, Tom Murphy with us every Monday and Thursday from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
We're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. And as always, BetOnline is your #1 spot for all the college and pro football action this season. With a new updated site and interface and even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the #1 source for everything college football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use the promo code NFL100. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.